Hey guys, thank you for purchasing your Rosso Motors eATV. You should have received 2 shipments, one with the unit itself in a crate and the one with the battery pack in a box. Today we're going to show you how to unbox and assemble them fully. The tools we're going to need today to assemble this ATV are a knife or a box cutter, a 5mm Allen wrench, a 10mm wrench, as a 12mm wrench, a 19mm wrench, and a Phillips screwdriver. So we're going to start by just taking the cardboard packaging off the outside of the crate. Now that we've removed the cardboard packaging off the bike, we're simply going to remove the top part of the crate here. We're going to be using our Phillips screwdriver and our 10mm wrench. Put your Phillips screwdriver on the bolt on the front and your 10mm wrench on the nut on the back. Simply just untwist. Now that we've removed all the bolts from the frame of the bike, we're just going to cut any zap straps that are holding onto the top of the frame. So our next step is going to be to remove the top of the crate here. Simply just lift up. For the next step, we're going to remove the bike from the bottom of the crate. There's a piece of tie wire at the front and the rear of the bike we're going to have to remove from the crate. You can simply just untie the tie wire, or if you have side cutters or anything, it just makes it that much quicker. So now that we've untied the tie wire holding the bike to the bottom of the frame, we're going to lift the unit out of the frame. So now that we've got all the packaging off the bike and it out of the crate, you'll find that you've found a few cosmetic pieces we need to install. There's the front rack and the rear rack, and then the front bumper. There's also the brown box that we found on the, the footwell there. So here we're going over the contents of the brown box that we just pulled off the footwell of the quad. We have our reflectors here with the nuts to install them, which we're going to show you how to do later in this video. We have the battery charger for the bike, the keys for the speed governor switch. You can also use your ignition key. We have the 2 fuses here. One is for the bike, one is a spare. A toolkit that is provided with the bike. We are using different tools in this video just for convenience. We have our handlebar clamps and the bolts to install it. And then we have our gear shifter knob, which we're going to install as well. So now that we have the bike all unpackaged, the first step we're going to do in assembly is installing the handlebars onto the bike. So we're going to need the handlebar clamps here and the 4 long bolts to mount them down. Our first step is going to be to break these 2 zap jacks that are holding the neutral and reverse indicator on so we can install it with the handlebars. Next, we're going to take our large bracket and put it on the bottom, line it up with the 4 holes that are in the steering column. From there you can install your handlebar. There is groove lines in the handlebar that you can line up with the grooves in the bracket. Next, we're going to take our smaller brackets, install them on top. I like to put 1 bolt in the front hole just to hold it in place. From there, then we can take our neutral and reverse indicator and put it on top of the 2 bottom holes here, and then we're going to put all 4 bolts through and mount them down tight. So from here we're going to use our 10mm wrench to tighten down the handlebars. You want to make sure you do the 2 sides down evenly so that you clamp the handlebar down evenly and there's not unbalance in it. So now that we have the handlebars installed on the bike, the next step we're going to do is installing the rear rack onto the bike. So first we're going to remove these 4 bolts and nuts off the back of the bike. They're just hand tight on here. Next we just line the rack back up to the holes that are freed there. Slide your bolts back through and put your nut on the opposite side. Once you get all 4 in, we will be tightening them down. The bolt size is a 10mm wrench and the nut is a 12mm wrench. So now we're going to tighten these down with our 10 and 12mm wrench. And once again, it's the exact same procedure on the other side. Now that we have our rear rack installed on the bike, we're going to install our front rack and the front bumper of the bike. So first we're going to take these 2 bolts out of the frame that are just hand tight in here, as well as take the 2 bolts that are on the top of your front bumper off. So you're going to line the bumper up to the frame where those 2 bolts were in the bottom and reinstall the 2 bolts. So for the front bumper and rack, we don't tighten anything down until we have both of them fully installed. So now that we have those 2 bolts in the bottom, we're going to line up the top of the front bumper to the front rack and get the 2 bolts that we pulled out of the bumper through both. Now we're going to have to take the nuts off of these 2 bolts here. And it's a Phillips screw from the bottom that we're going to screw into the racks on the grommets here. So now we're going to unscrew this bolt from the bottom to remove the nut from the top. Once you have the nut off the top, you can put the rack onto the bolt here and screw it in. And once again, the procedure is the exact same on the opposite side. So now that we've got the Phillips screws from the bottom, we're going to finish tightening up all the rest of the hardware for our front bumper and rack. So we're going to start with these bolts up here. It's a 10 mil wrench on the bolt and a 12 mil on the nut, and you simply just tighten those down. Same procedure on the other side. Now we're going to go down to the bottom, and we're going to use our 10 millimeter wrench just to tighten up the bolts on the bottom. And just tighten the one on the other side. So now we're going to install the gear shift knob that was provided in the box of hardware. You just place the knob on top, take the little Phillips screw that comes with it, slide it down in, use your Phillips screwdriver to tighten it down. So now that the rest of the bike is assembled, we're going to begin installing the battery that came in the second shipment that we're going to go take a look at now. So now we're going to open up the battery box that we received and show you how to install it the exact way you received it. The batteries are packaged inside a smaller box inside the battery box. Now here's our battery case that we'll be installing inside the bike. So now we're going to install the battery. The first step to do so is taking the bracket off the top of the battery box now. Removing the battery bracket here with the bolts on either side. You'll be using an Allen wrench on the top and a 10 mil wrench on the nut on the bottom. Again, most of the time they are just hand tight, so you can just not take them off that way. We'll remove the bracket. So now we're going to lift a pack of batteries into the battery box of the bike. Then we're going to reinstall the bracket that we took off previously. Tighten them down with our wrench. So now that we have the battery pack installed in the bike, we're just going to hook it up. The first step to that being installing the fuse. You take your red fuse holder here, open the cap. You'll see 2 prongs down inside there that you're just going to press your fuse down into. Press it in, reinstall the cap, and then next you're going to have a white plug coming from that fuse and one coming from your bike. You simply just click the 2 together. Your battery's installed. So now that we have the bike already, we're just going to install some cosmetics like reflectors. We're just simply slide them through the hole in the rack there. They come with a nut. You spin onto the back. If you want to make sure they're on really tight, you can grab a 10 mil wrench and tighten the nut down on the back. This procedure is the same for all 5 reflectors. So now that we have our bike fully assembled, there's just a few things that we want to check before you get out riding. So the first one is going to be to check our wheel nut to make sure that they're all tight. So we're going to use our 19 mil wrench, just go around to all 4 wheels and make sure they're tight on there. So next we want to check the brake lever position to make sure it's in a good position where your child can safely grab them. You can simply move them up and down, and then you're going to want to tighten it down with your 5 mil Allen key. So before riding, you want to make sure the governor is in the appropriate position for the child that'll be riding it. So you can either put it in the first, second, or third speed. After that, you want to remove the key. Finally, we want to go to the other side of the bike with our keys, insert it in the ignition, and turn it onto the on position. And now you're ready to ride. As you can see, we now have a fully assembled unit here. It is a fairly easy procedure to complete. Most should take you about 30 minutes to complete. If you do have any questions while you are doing the procedure, we are more than happy to help, so feel free to contact us and enjoy the ride.